Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 305 Insights. I'm your host, Alan Somerson, and the return episode after a long hiatus is about your back-to-back, now two-time Stanley Cup winning champion, Florida Panthers. I mean, folks, this team was incredible this postseason. They vanquished one of their previous rivals in the Tampa Bay Lightning. Most people considered the Lightning to be the favorite in that series after the way the Florida Panthers looked in the regular season to end the regular season and the way that the Lightning retooled their team. They beat them 4-1. Then you face the Toronto Maple Leafs in the second round. You find yourself down 0-2 in terms of games, not goals. You're down 2-0. And you come back and win that series 4-3 with a decisive victory in Game 7, 6-1. Then you go on, you face the Carolina Hurricanes, and you beat them 4-1. And you find yourself face to face with the rematch from last year in the Edmonton Oilers. Once again, the hockey world was rooting for a Connor McDavid win to anoint this generation's greatest player and having that official stamp of approval with the title. I mean, you look at guys like Alexander Ovechkin, who went a long time into his career before he finally won that one title. You got Sid the Kid, Sidney Crosby. He's won a few. All these recent future Hall of Famers. And you even got McKinnon in Colorado. He won his title. So McDavid needs his. He did not get it this year. And yes, the Panthers won it 4-2, so they didn't need 7 games like they did last year. But in all honesty, folks, this was about as one-sided as a series as you could possibly get. History might look back on it differently, but in the moment, the Panthers led for a record 255 minutes and 49 seconds. The Oilers only held a lead for basically half an hour, 33 minutes and 51 seconds. It was absolute domination by the Panthers. And the Oilers were rarely in a position to succeed this series. The Panthers once again overwhelmed their opponents with their depth. They tied an NHL record with 6 players who had 20 points. Now, again, for those of you unfamiliar, points in hockey counts as goals and assists. And mind you, they had the 6 players. Luostarinen had 19, and Anton Lundell had 18. Carter Verhaeghe, 7 goals, 16 assists, 23 points total. Sam Reinhart, 11 goals, 12 assists, 23 total. Matthew Tkachuk, 8 goals, 15 assists, 23 total. Mind you, Tkachuk is an individual who had a sports hernia and tore his adductor off the bone. And he still played through that in the playoffs. Alexander Barkov, 6 goals, 16 assists, 22 points. Sam Bennet, the Conn Smythe winner, 15 goals, 7 assists, 22 points. And Brad, the Rat King Marchand, 10 goals, 10 assists for 20 points. The 94 goals total that this team scored in the playoffs were 4th in NHL history. 11 players had double-digit points, and there were 19 different goal scorers on this team. And then there's the wall in the net. Bob. Sergei Bobrovsky went 16-7 with 2.22 goals allowed against with a .914 save percentage, and he pitched 3 shutouts and was remarkably close to many more. You can't say he was entirely the difference in the series because obviously you got to focus on the forecheck of the Panthers. the defense that they played. But there's something to be said about the way he cleans up some of the mistakes that were made throughout the playoffs and the incredible saves that he had to make. And the peace of mind that it gives you that every night you know you have a Hall of Famer as a goalie. And you will not have to worry about putting in your backup. That was a major difference in this series, where Edmonton was trying to figure out, are they going to play Picard? Are they going to play Skinner? And meanwhile, Bob, every single game. And speaking of Edmonton, you can't put it all on Skinner. He made a few misplays here and there. But their two stars went absolutely silent this series. Leon Draisaitl was injured last year and was a shadow of himself, and they still won 7 games against us. He had 2 OT goals, but only 4 total in the series. Connor McDavid only scored 1 goal in the entire series, which was in garbage time of Game 5 when they were already down. I believe it was 3-0. Something along the lines of that, maybe 4-1 but there was no shot that they were going to catch up at that point. So again, that's why it's called garbage time. And he had 6 points total. He only had 1 goal and 1 assist in games 3, 4, 5, and 6 combined. Last 4 games of the series, he had 2 points. And this is for the most talented player in hockey today. From Game 3 on, Florida outscored Edmonton 10-0 in the first period. This is the pressure that the Panthers put on the Oilers, and for the most part, their opponents. You start off strong. You withstand their initial barrage, and then you finally break through, and then you just grind them out with your depth for the rest of the game, which is why this team was so strong in the third period. Historically speaking, under Paul Maurice, they're one of the better teams, if not the best team in the NHL in the third period. Yeah, you blew that. Well, it wasn't the third period, but you blew the 3-0 lead when you got, that was in the second period. But you still blew a 3-0 lead, which could have really sent the series, in terms of dominant fashion rather than letting them win that second game. Again, it's just the depth. And again, you have your top line guys. Reinhart matched Draisaitl's goal output in the game clinchers, game 6. And 4 goals. Again, Reinhart's the one who scored the game-winning goal in Game 7 last year, and he scores 4 goals this year in the clinching game. And again, you have Tkachuk playing through his injuries. You have Sam Bennet having the postseason of his lifetime. You have Brad Marchand, who might be one of the best deadline acquisitions, at least in South Florida history, just trade acquisitions. There's a case to be made that he's one of the better NHL acquisitions in recent memory due to the influence that he had. And again, the wave upon wave upon wave that is brought forth by this team. I mean, that third line, their plus minus was ridiculous. And you have to imagine that it makes it appealing for some of these guys to want to come back, like Bennet, like Marchand. $19 million in cap space. You're not going to be able to re-sign everybody. And I'll give him credit. Ekblad, once he came back, from the PED suspension, he still made some mistakes here and there, but overall it's one of his best stretches of hockey in a long time. Now, are you going to be able to pay him the money that he expects? No. Bennet is probably going to get 8 years in the range of $8 million. Will Marchand sign back here? I'm not sure. But again, you got a lot of free agents. The same thing as last year. You got to let some people walk. The Tkachuk injury with the LITR designation allowed you to pick up Seth Jones and Marchand. But That's a discussion for another day. You just have to enjoy this team right now. And I know this sounds biased because, again, I'm recording from South Florida, being a Panthers fan for quite some time now. But there's a case to make that the 2025 Panthers are the best team in the salary cap era. You've got the '08 Red Wings, the 2010 Blackhawks, 2012 Kings, 2016 Penguins, 2020 Lightning, the Avalanche in 2022 maybe. Panthers have a serious case for number one. And again, that's not me bringing it up. That's multiple sports writers across the NHL landscape that are saying this is a dynastic team. And again, it's hard to call this team a dynasty because usually most people say you have to win 3 titles within a certain time frame. But again, hockey, ask any unbiased sports reporter, and to a T, they'll say the Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy to win in professional sports. You can have a goalie that just gets hot and the team can ride him to the finals. You can have freak injuries. You can have, there's just so many factors that come into play where it's not always the best team that wins. But in this case, it was. And again, I mentioned this last year when I recorded about the Panthers, and I'll mention again this year just to give some historical context. I've been following this team for well over a decade now. It's been since 2013 that I signed up for my first season tickets. And just to give people an idea, the tickets were for all home games. So there's 82 home games, there's usually 41 home games. They gave free parking and jerseys were included. And it was roughly $600. It was no more than $700. It was in the $600 range for all of that. I've been going to games where they've had maybe 5,000-6,000 people in the stands. Again, you've heard them talking about on ESPN and other networks. They used to tarp off the upper deck for these games. What's now called Amerant Bank Arena is one of the largest arenas in the NHL. It holds well over 19,000 for hockey, 20,000 for concerts. But again, we're talking about hockey here. And now it's difficult to get a ticket. They sell out virtually every game, if not every game. The atmosphere is intense, whether people want to insult it or not, that don't live in this market. There was a decibel recording that showed it was one of the loudest, if not the loudest recording, verified recordings in NHL history. I believe it was in game. It was not in the clinching game. So I believe it was in game 4, where it reached a peak of like 131.8 decibels. Something along those lines. And it's weird to say this, but this is a franchise that it's almost viewed as, and I heard this on the Lepetard show the other day, and I agree with it. You can almost view this as a franchise that's just starting out, an expansion team. Because for pretty much ever since like the post Stanley Cup run, and then when they moved to Broward County, and it's been a long time since the owners of this team cared about the franchise. I mean, there were times where you could walk up with a Florida ID and say, I've never been to a game, and they'd just give you a free ticket. They would just do their best just to get people in the building and hope they get revenue from them by them buying beers or food and whatnot. But Vinny Viola took over this team, gave Zito a job as the GM, and they had the fortitude the brass for having the most points, President's Trophy, I believe it is, having the most points in the NHL. So basically being the best team in the NHL and getting eliminated in the second round and saying, hey, this isn't going to work. And you trade one of your cornerstones in Jonathan Huberdeau for Matthew Tkachuk. And it's all gone uphill from there. You reached the Stanley Cup final years ago. You reached the Stanley Cup final last year. And you win it last year. And then you win it this year, back to back. 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. Obviously, it wasn't as nail-biting as the one last year. You blow the 3-0 lead. It's 3-3, Game 7, and you're up 2-1 going into the third period, and you're just trying to hold them off for pretty much the entire third period and parts of the second period. It's a 5-1 game. It was pretty much over after it was 3-0. And it's just crazy to me as a fan. If you told me when I first started following this team that there was a time in the future where this team would have went to 3 straight finals and been back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, I'd be hard-pressed to believe you. I mean, I used to watch this team when, Jacob Markstrom was a rookie, when he was our future goalie. I used to watch this team when Tim Thomas came in, when they brought back Roberto Luongo, when Jaromir Jagr was the draw. And then you had the baby Panthers when they drafted Barkov, Huberdeau, Ekblad as the number 1 pick in 2014. When they lost Jonathan Marchand because they wanted to get rid of Riley Smith's contract, and you helped basically build the Las Vegas Golden Knights into, Stanley Cup winners. I've been through the highs and the lows. It's a lot of lows. And it's just incredible to be a fan at this point in time, knowing what this team, what management, what the players have accomplished. What these guys want to do for each other is, again, it's generic, whatever you want to call it, that, every man wants to have each other's back, different things like that. But I think there's a video that recently came out, from the mic'd up outputs from the Florida Panthers, and it's all over Bleacher Report and different, you can just find it on different channels on YouTube. Paul Maurice, the head coach of the team, tells the fourth line that he wanted them to be out there for the last shift, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been in this situation. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have overcome that 2-0 hole against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And with all that, the atmosphere, all the chatter going around, and he had the wherewithal to tell those gentlemen that you're going to be the last ones on the ice, to have that shift, to make sure that you can be the ones to initially throw up your equipment in the air and celebrate. That's an encapsulation of this team. All the players have a responsibility. All the players accept the responsibility. And all the players buy in to this culture, to the concept of what they want to accomplish. And you saw when they, Barkov is the team captain, so he gets first touch of the Stanley Cup. And then they start passing it around to the players who have never won a championship before. The look on Seth Jones' face when he was carrying that cup around the ring was incredible. And videos are already coming out of them being at the Elbow Room, Club 11. They're definitely soaking it in. And it's going to be fun to see the parade in a few days. So, again, it's just I can't put it into words. I've been trying to write it down over the past few days. I've been trying to find the ways to convey how I feel about this team, but it's very difficult for me to paint the picture of how amazing it's been for me as a fan to start off in the doldrums and into the bottom of the bottom and slowly see this team grow into the juggernaut that it is today. It's been just an absolute pleasure to watch some of these guys develop from when they were just younglings, to watch some of these signings that, again, the Bobrovsky contract was criticized throughout the league as a crazy overpay, and he didn't have a great start to his career in Florida. You know, they thought that Spencer Knight was going to take over sooner rather than later, and now he's turned into a South Florida legend. So it's, again, Barkov is going to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest Panther of all time. And it's going to be, again, like, he will be, because of the length of time that he's been here. But there's going to be other guys that are going to have legendary status as well, like Bobrovsky, because he's going to be here for 8 years once his contract's up. Tkachuk's going to be here for a long time. Sam Reinhart's going to be here for a long time. He signed an 8-year deal. I think Tkachuk has a 7-year deal. Verhaeghe has a 7-year deal. Bennett's probably going to sign an 8-year deal. Anton Lundell is going to, baby Barkov, they like to call him. But Barkov has been here from the beginning. And to watch someone who I'll be able to tell my kids and future generations about, and be that old man wagging his fist to the sky saying that, this is the greatest hockey player I've ever seen for the Florida Panthers. That's what also brings a smile to my face. Knowing how I can look back on this team. And the journey's not done yet. They can re-sign some players, retool some things just like they did this year, and make another run. One can only dream of this journey continuing like that. But again, this team has brought me tremendous joy. It's brought my household tremendous joy, and it's brought a lot of people in South Florida tremendous joy. And again, it's been a long hiatus for me, but this is a team that can bring me back to start recording again. So if you've forgotten, you know the drill. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow. You can catch me on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, on all those things. Again, whether it's YouTube, subscribe, like the video, Apple Podcasts, leave a rating, subscribe. Same thing with Spotify, all that good stuff. I'm going to start churning out the content once again. It's the summertime. It's kind of slow, but you got FSU football coming up. There's a lot I have to discuss with that. I've got a lot of things in the pipeline that I need to discuss about that team. You got the Miami Hurricanes, college football in general. We'll start doing what we did last year with the biggest games, what we expect to happen, coaches on the hot seat, etc. All that stuff's going to come out. But for now, it's time to enjoy your back-to-back Stanley Cup winning champion, Florida Panthers. We'll catch you next time here on 305 Insights. Have a good one, folks.